Hey guys, I'm Jessica and I am here today to talk to you about writing anxiety. Writing anxiety is something that every writer experiences. I feel like writer's anxiety should be like a medical term because that is the #1 problem that I see from writers. I'm convinced that when writing, every writer thinks what they're writing is crap. Can we just talk about how it's like 90 degrees in the South still? I feel like to be a writer, you have to have a certain amount of anxiety. And I think there are 3 reasons for this. The first is self-awareness. So some people are very self-aware, some people are not very self-aware. People with self-awareness are aware of how others perceive them. They're aware of social situations, like they can look at something and understand what's going on. Sometimes people with anxiety take this a step further and overanalyze social cues and see things that aren't there. But I feel like a certain amount of social awareness is important. And I feel like self-awareness is also linked with empathy. So empathy is the ability to feel what someone else is feeling. There's a difference between sympathizing with someone and empathizing. Like you can look at the side of the road and see someone with a flat tire and be like, man, that sucks. That's sympathizing. But empathizing would be feeling that frustration and stress that they're going through. And I feel like without a certain amount of anxiety, you can't feel empathy. And you have to be able to feel empathy to write a book. Anxiety also creates that drive to do better. If you're never worried about the quality of your writing, then you're never going to improve. Worrying about what you're writing and if it's good enough is going to lead you to work harder and get better. I feel like anxiety also brings along with it imagination, which is very important as a writer. I've always been that person that has a crazy overactive imagination to the point where I stress myself out. I'll give you an example of this. So the first time I lived by myself, I was 23. I had my own apartment and I can make something out of anything. One night I was sleeping and I have an iMac, like one of those desktop Macs, and music just started blasting from it. And it was in the living room and I was in my bedroom. And it's so disorienting waking up to like music blasting in your apartment. It was like 2 a.m. So my first thought, of course, is there's someone in my apartment. So I get up and I walk and I peek around the corner and I don't see anyone. And I walk over to the computer and I notice that the caps lock is on. And all of a sudden I knew it's the caps lock killer, of course. So my brain invented this serial killer. His name is the caps lock killer because that is how he leaves his mark. He leaves the caps lock on the computer and that's how people know that he committed this murder, and that was it. That was my first assumption. There's this rule called Occam's razor that means the simplest solution is usually the right solution, but this doesn't work for me because my answer is always something completely convoluted like that. Like there must have been a serial killer in my apartment who was luring me out of the bedroom with blaring music and he was gonna kill me and leave the caps lock on, so the detectives knew he had struck again. Later I realized that my cat had jumped on my keyboard and that was the simplest solution and it was the correct solution. But without that anxiety and without that paranoia, I don't feel like I could come up with the ideas I come up with, and I don't feel like I could write like I do. Just like anxiety can make you imagine the worst scenarios, it can also make you imagine the best scenarios, and I feel like that can be just as harmful. I feel like everyone has this image in their mind of whatever your writing space is, sitting down with your coffee, typing out words, feeling fulfilled, and that's just not how it is a lot of the time. There are moments where that happens and those are great moments, but having that idealistic view of writing can really damage your self-esteem and your confidence. You have to realize that writing is going to be a struggle, and if it's not a struggle sometimes, you're probably not doing it right. So what do you do with this anxiety? Because sometimes it can become too much and it can prevent you from writing. If you have too much anxiety and you let it take over, then you're not going to write anything. because you're gonna let that voice in your head that's telling you can't take over, and you're gonna sit there and watch Netflix and be really disappointed with yourself in a year when you didn't write anything that year. And actually, writing is a great way of dealing with anxiety. I feel like on days that I write, I have less anxiety because I've channeled that energy into writing, and I am not sitting there thinking about ways that I could die, or things that my baby could choke on, or ways the world could end. Something else you could do, I don't know if this would help with everyone, but I feel like this helps for me. I look back over things that I wrote in the past, and it is clear how much better I've become at writing. And sometimes it can make you cringe when you see things you've written in the past, but that's a good sign because it means that you're improving. I was on the NaNoWriMo forums yesterday, and I saw someone talking about how Neil Gaiman feels like giving up like 30,000 words into each novel he writes. And I feel like that's a pretty common point for people want to give up. And apparently he calls his editor's agent and they talk him out of it. And I feel like this is a good thing to remember when you're writing, because, you know, he's a wonderful, famous writer, and even he has that 30,000 word anxiety. But I found a quote from him. Neil Gaiman says, "You have to finish things. That's what you learn from. You learn from finishing things." And I feel like that is so true. Even if what you finished is terrible and it's a really rough first draft, that feeling of finishing is the best thing ever. And that's why I like to write a lot of short stories, because I can write one in a couple of days and then I feel accomplished and I feel like I can do this. And that feeling will lead to success in other things. Like once you know you can finish a short story, then you know you can finish a novel. I also like to remind myself and have someone remind me that I'm writing a first draft, because it's easy to pick up a book and open it and feel overwhelmed by how polished and put together the story is when yours is such a mess. But you have to realize that's their like 18th draft and you're on your first. And this seems like a simple thing to remind yourself, but it is really difficult, because like you never saw that book in its first stage. You hear about authors talking about how their stories change and evolve, but you never actually see that first attempt. And I feel like that might be helpful. I wish someone would like give me their first draft of something and let me see it, but like I don't think I would ever do that. So overall, you can't let your anxiety control you. You have to harness it and use it and let your imagination run wild, and it can really help you become a better writer if you let it. Or it can help you sit on your couch and watch Netflix for hours if you let it do that as well. I hope that everyone's NaNoWriMo planning is going well. I am so excited about my story. I sat down yesterday and planned out a lot of it, like a surprising amount. I think more than I've planned out before for NaNoWriMo, and I got really excited about it. And I really wanted to start writing, but I'm going to wait until November, like I'm supposed to. Baby. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like it if you liked it. I will be back in a few days with another video. Bye.